Persuasive Strategies. If you can speak, you can influence. If you can influence, you can change lives. That is the power of persuasion. So as you learn to organize and utilize the strategies for persuasive speeches, remember this is a tool that you can use throughout your life to affect important change. When you're creating a persuasive speech, the first thing you need to do is clarify the goal. You need to determine the kind of proposition you will support and prove. You need to consider your audience's opinion of the issue. You need to establish your own credibility, and you need to consider your audience's opinions, beliefs, and values. Clarify the goal. What exactly is it that you want your audience to do once they've heard your speech? Do you want to convince them to discontinue doing something that they already do? Do you want them to adopt a new policy or behavior? Do you want them to continue doing something that they already do? Or do you want them to avoid doing something that they haven't tried? There are three kinds of propositions that you could be trying to support. A proposition of fact. This is something that is objective and provable. Did it happen or did it not? Is it true or is it false? A proposition of value. That attempts to prove the worth of something, that something is valuable, something is not. And a proposition of policy asks the audience to support a plan or replace a system with a new plan. It's very important in persuasive speeches to try to figure out whether your audience is likely to agree with you or disagree with you, because you organize your speech differently. You include different content. You appeal to the audience in different ways depending on whether your audience agrees with your position or disagrees with your position. If your audience agrees with your position, you want to use an emotional appeal. You don't have to convince them or change their minds. What you're really trying to do is get them worked up, get them fired up. So you want to use emotional appeals. That can be fear, hope, security, guilt, but you want to hit them in the heart. Then you want to motivate them to take action. A lot of us agree or already feel a certain way about things, but we don't necessarily act on it. Most people agree they shouldn't text and drive, and yet many of us do anyway. So you're trying to first stir up the emotions that they already have, so that the feelings that they already have, the beliefs they already have are more powerful, and then motivate them to take action. And then people are far more likely to actually take action if they commit to that action in public. So you want to do that as part of your speech. That's if your audience agrees with your position. If your audience disagrees with your position, then what you want to do is begin by stressing common ground. If your audience disagrees with your position, basically their minds are closed. So anything you say is just going to roll off. So what you want to do is try to open their minds a little bit so that your words can get in. And the way you open their minds is you find what it is that we have in common. I'll give you an example. At a public speech that I was giving, it involved issues of violence in youth. But it had a very mixed crowd. Some people were police officers and some people were social workers and psychologists. This was an audience that was likely to have very different views about gun control than I would, and from each other. So how do I talk about that in a way that doesn't just offend people and close their minds? So I started with common ground. Everybody in that room who worked with young people, everyone in the room did work with young people. So I said, whether or not we agree on gun control issues, everyone in this room can agree that violence in our culture and with our young people is an issue. So I found the thing that we all had in common. And then we could debate about the ways to address the issue, what the solution is, but we could all agree that there was a problem. So that is stressing common ground. Now, what that common ground will be different depending on what your topic is. But what you want to do is figure out what it is your audience and you have in common and start talking about that. And then you want to emphasize evidence and logic. Notice this is the opposite is if your audience agrees with you. If they disagree with you, you first want to get them at least calm and with their minds open by stressing common ground, and then you need to use objective evidence and logic. You are trying to change their mind. You also need to establish your own credibility. Now, we do this with every speech. It's part of the introduction, your credibility statement, but it's even more important in a persuasive speech. So why should this audience listen to you? You're trying to convince them of something. How do you even know enough about it to be worth listening to? So you want to talk about your qualifications, your knowledge about the topic, and then how you deliver the information. You need to come across authoritatively so that you sound like you're credible in addition to actually being credible. You need to consider your audience opinions, beliefs, and values. Now, we already do this to a certain extent. So when you fill out the beginning part of your outline and you're asked who is your audience, this is the kind of thing that you should be thinking about. What are their opinions about things? What are their beliefs? What are their values? An opinion is an attitude, a belief is more of a faith issue, and a value is something that is a central concern. What do we value in life? These are the kinds of things you want to think about because A, it will indicate to you whether your audience is likely to agree or disagree. It's a way that you can find common ground. It indicates the emotions you can appeal to if it's an audience that's likely to agree with you. Some of you are probably way too young to remember Star Trek, the original series, but those of you who do, you can think about the different kinds of approaches by thinking about the three main characters. We had Spock, Logos. That has to do with things of the mind, arrangement, evidence, and logic. We had Kirk, pathos, the emotional person. That was the emotional effect of the speaker's words. And then we had the doctor, ethos. That has to do with credibility, ethical speaking. So, to review, in a persuasive speech, you need to clarify your goal. You need to determine the kind of proposition you will support and prove. You need to consider your audience's opinion of the issue. You need to establish your own credibility, and you need to consider your audience's opinions, beliefs, and values. And Mark Twain said, "There's nothing in the world like a persuasive speech to fuddle the mental apparatus and upset the convictions and debauch the emotions of an audience not practiced in the tricks and delusions of oratory."